the fact that we have this 21st century currency, if one will, in and of itself creates lots of problems because no one really knows if it's a currency or not. I just released a book myself this last week called Mini-lateralism, basically this idea that the multilateral system of the Bretton Woods era is under stress, that some of the core foundations of international economic diplomacy are under revision. Certain aspects or characteristics of this mini-lateralism is you don't try to aspire to a universalist regime in which everybody is involved. Sometimes you have certain communities of faith. Secondly, you don't necessarily rely anymore in international economic affairs with treaties, formal legal obligations, but increasingly informal obligations, perhaps data instead of currency, or data instead of a fiat piece of paper. And then finally, the last is the fact that we're losing this dollar hegemony. And the book focuses on different kinds of blocks. But clearly, we're dealing with a different kind of block, a blockchain, in a increasingly, truly multi-currency system. Now, regulators have to ask themselves, what does all this mean? Okay. What could a Bitcoin be regulated or considered to be, right? Because you can't regulate anything if you don't know what it is. So what are some of the contenders for what Bitcoin is? All right. So you could view it as a commodity, not just a currency. If it's a commodity, however, it's kind of weird because commodities, we think about commodities, well, great, as lawyers, we actually have an entire list as to what specific things constitute a commodity, wheat, oil, and the like. But here, you have a thing that has an exchange value, but it doesn't necessarily have a use value from the perspective of consumption. You don't consume a Bitcoin the same way that you eat wheat or Wheaties, right? And so this creates this kind of question as to, well, is it really a commodity? A currency was discussed, and we've sort of used this term in a larger rhetorical sense, but from a both economic and legal sense, there are questions as to really whether or not it's a currency. A currency is an instrument of payment. On the other hand, here we have an instrument of payment that's actually not universally accepted, and it's not backed by any government. It's considered to be a store of value. For many of us here in the room, you know that Bitcoin has fluctuated, well, it fluctuates every day, way beyond sort of the means of fluctuation that one would normally associate with other kinds of investment instruments. So is it a store of value? It's